The emergency klaxons had been screaming for 6 hours straight when Counselor Thren Valdis finally allowed himself to admit the truth. They were all going to die. His 4 compound eyes swept across the Grand Assembly Hall, watching as representatives from 3,000 worlds descended into barely controlled chaos. The holographic display dominating the chamber's center showed the same horrifying image it had displayed since dawn. A swirling vortex of darkness consuming the outer rim colonies, leaving nothing but empty space behind. "Counselor Valdis!" Security Chief Morven Kask's gravelly voice cut through the din. The massive Thorian pushed through the crowd, his stone-like hide scraped and scarred from the recent evacuation efforts. "The 7th Fleet has been destroyed. Admiral Torvin sent no distress call. They simply vanished." Thren's antennae twitched involuntarily, a sign of distress his species couldn't hide. The 7th Fleet commanded 40,000 ships? They'd disappeared in under 3 minutes. "What is that thing?" someone shouted from the upper galleries. "The archives call it the Devourer," came a quiet voice near Thren's side. He turned to see Piper Souls, the young human observer who'd been assigned to his staff 2 years ago. She stood barely to his shoulder, her species considered almost comically small by galactic standards. "It appears every 50,000 years. Last time, it consumed 14 civilizations before returning to dark space." "And how," Thren said slowly, "do you know this?" Piper's brown eyes met his without flinching. "Earth has been preparing since we discovered the pattern 3 centuries ago. We tried to warn the Council 17 times. You dismissed our envoys every single time." The chamber's lights flickered. On the display, another star system winked out of existence. "Counselor!" A junior technician's voice cracked with panic. "It's changing trajectory. It's heading for the core worlds. Current path, it will reach the Council homeworld in 72 hours. Silence crashed over the assembly like a physical force. 72 hours. 3 days until the center of galactic civilization ceased to exist. Thren's mandibles clicked together, an old habit when making difficult decisions. He'd spent 40 years in politics, building alliances, negotiating treaties, and carefully maintaining the balance of power that kept the galaxy stable. He'd dismissed Earth's requests for recognition dozens of times, considering humanity too young, too aggressive, too unpredictable to deserve a voice in galactic affairs. Now, with annihilation approaching, he found himself turning to the small human woman at his side. "Can your people stop it?" he asked quietly. Piper was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice carried across the now silent chamber. "Earth can stop it, but you won't like how." "Show us," Thren commanded, his voice resonating through the hall's acoustics. Piper tapped her datapad. The central display shifted, showing Earth's solar system. But something was wrong. The planets were moving, not in their normal orbits, but in coordinated patterns, like a machine coming to life. "What are we seeing?" Morven Kask rumbled. Piper's expression remained neutral, but Thren detected something in her eyes. Pride, perhaps, or vindication. 300 years ago, humanity made a choice. We couldn't build fleets fast enough to matter in galactic politics. We didn't have the resources to compete with empires spanning hundreds of worlds. So we did something else. The display zoomed closer, revealing massive structures connecting the planets, energy streams flowing between worlds in precise geometries. We turned our entire solar system into one single organism. 8 planets, hundreds of moons, thousands of stations, all connected, all coordinated. When the Devourer arrives, it won't face warships or weapons. She looked up at the assembled representatives, at the thousands of species who'd ignored humanity's warnings for 3 centuries. It will face Earth itself. The chamber erupted into shouting, but Thren barely heard it. He was watching the display, watching the impossible dance of planets, and understanding for the first time that humanity had never been weak. They'd simply been patient.
Captain Julian Cross had forgotten what natural sunlight looked like. For 16 months, he'd lived inside the coordination nexus, a crystalline chamber buried 3 miles beneath Geneva, where the gravitational threads of 8 planets converged into a single point of human will. The walls around him pulsed with azure light, each flicker representing a billion calculations flowing between Earth and her sister worlds. "Captain, we have confirmation from the Council," announced Engineer Sienna Worth from her station below. Her fingers danced across holographic controls that only existed in the warped space the Nexus created. "They're evacuating the core worlds. Ambassador Crix is requesting direct communication." Julian nodded, and the air before him shimmered. The hologram of Crix the Negotiator materialized, a being of pure energy contained within a crystalline shell, one of the few species that could survive near the Devourer's event horizon. "Captain Cross," Crix's voice resonated like wind chimes, "the Council questions your plan. How can planets stop what fleets could not?" Julian smiled grimly. "Because fleets think like predators, Ambassador. They chase, they fight, they retreat. Planets think like mountains. We simply exist and let the universe flow around us. Poetry won't save us, but uncertainty flickered in their crystalline form." "Watch," Julian said simply. He raised his hand and the Nexus responded. Across 200 million miles of space, Earth began to move. Not quickly. Nothing so massive could move quickly, but inexorably, certainly, Earth slid from her orbit like a chess piece positioned by an invisible hand. The Moon followed, locked in eternal dance. Mars shifted next, then Venus, each planet moving in response to precisely calculated gravitational nudges. In the council chamber, Thren Valdis watched his instruments go mad. "Impossible," he breathed. "The energy required to move a planet would destroy any normal civilization, yes, but we're not moving them with engines. We're conducting a symphony of gravity itself." On the display, Jupiter rotated slightly, its massive gravitational well creating ripples in space-time. Saturn's rings flared brilliant white as exotic matter generators hidden within them activated. Uranus and Neptune, the outer guardians, began spinning faster, building momentum like cosmic flywheels. "They're creating a gravitational net," Morven Kask realized, his stone-like face showing something that might have been awe. "They're positioning themselves to trap it." Back in the Nexus, sweat beaded on Julian's forehead. Moving planets required precision that made threading a needle look simple. One miscalculation, and Earth's biosphere would tear itself apart. 200 monitoring stations across the solar system fed him data faster than any unaugmented human could process. But Julian wasn't unaugmented anymore. None of the coordination officers were. "Sienna, status on the tidal locks," he asked. "Holding stable. The compensation generators are managing the stress. Some earthquakes on the surface, but within acceptable parameters." Her voice remained calm, but Julian knew what acceptable parameters meant. Cities shaking, oceans surging, millions of people holding their breath as their world moved beneath them. "The Devourer has changed course," announced another officer. "It's detected the gravitational anomaly. Current trajectory, it's heading directly for us." "Good," Julian said quietly. "Let it come." Crix's hologram flickered with agitation. "Captain Cross, if your plan fails, you've positioned Earth directly in its path. Your world will be the first consumed." "We know. That's why it has to work." The display showed the Devourer now, a wound in reality, a space where physics screamed and died. It moved like cancer through the cosmos, and it was accelerating toward Earth's solar system. Julian closed his eyes, feeling the weight of 8 worlds in his mind. Through the nexus, he sensed millions of humans across the solar system, each playing their part. Engineers on Mercury adjusting solar collectors. Farmers on Europa maintaining the food systems that kept humanity fed. Children on Titan learning the equations that made this possible. All of them, every human being connected in this moment. "Prepare the Shadow Protocol," he commanded. The planets moved faster now, sliding into a formation that had never existed in natural astronomy. Earth took the center position. Mars and Venus flanked her like bodyguards. Jupiter and Saturn formed the outer wall, their gravitational wells deepening impossibly. The ice giants began spinning so fast that they became a blur. "Ambassador Crix," Julian said, opening his eyes, "you asked how planets can stop what fleets could not. The answer is simple. We don't stop it. We show it that some shadows are deeper than even the Devourer can swallow." The solar system completed its transformation. 8 planets aligned in a geometry that created a gravitational shadow so deep that even light bent around it. When the Devourer entered that shadow, it would find itself trapped in a prison made of planets, caught in a web of gravity from which even darkness couldn't escape. Thren Valdis stared at his instruments in the council chamber. "By the first light," he whispered. "They've turned their entire solar system into a cage." Pipper Sol smiled for the first time since the crisis began. "Now you understand why we didn't need warships, Counselor. We had something better." "What's that?" he asked. "Home," she replied simply. "We had home, and we learned to make it fight for us." On the display, the Devourer crossed the threshold into Earth's solar system. The trap was set, the shadow fell, and for the first time in 50,000 years, the Devourer discovered that some prey knew how to bite back.
Dr. Marcus Holt pressed his palm against the observation window, feeling the vibrations that had become constant over the past 36 hours. Below him, the Martian surface rippled like water as gravitational waves pulsed through the planet's core. "Dr. Holt!" A young nurse ran toward him through the crowded medical bay. "Another collapse in Section 7. We're receiving 40 casualties, maybe more." Marcus turned from the window, his exhaustion momentarily forgotten. Around him, the medical facility overflowed with people. Not just humans, but refugees from a dozen species who'd fled the Devourer's path and found themselves caught in Earth's desperate gambit. The building shook again, harder this time, and somewhere in the distance, alarms wailed. "Get them to the reinforced wings," Marcus ordered, "and prep the surgical teams. If these tremors get worse—" "They will get worse," interrupted a raspy voice. Zana Peck emerged from the refugee quarters, her scaled skin dulled by dust and stress. The Vaxian elder had led 2,000 of her people to Mars 3 weeks ago, seeking safety. Instead, they'd found themselves on a planet being used as a cosmic weapon. "Your Earth Command just announced Phase 3. The gravitational compression increases." Marcus met her golden eyes. "We'll keep you safe." "Will you?" Zana's laugh was bitter. "Your species is sacrificing everything for a galaxy that ignored you. For what? Glory? Recognition?" Before Marcus could answer, the building lurched violently. Support beams groaned. Emergency lights flickered. Through the window, Marcus watched as a massive dust storm erupted on the horizon, the result of tectonic plates grinding against each other in ways nature never intended. His communication device buzzed.
The image of director Olivia Grant appeared, her face gaunt from sleepless nights in Earth Command. "Marcus, we're entering final positioning. The Devourer is inside the perimeter. This is going to get rough." "How rough?" Marcus asked, though he already knew the answer. Olivia's pause said everything. "Mars's rotation is increasing by 12%. We estimate structural integrity will hold, but surface conditions will be extreme. Evacuate everyone to the deep shelters now." The transmission cut off. Marcus turned to find hundreds of eyes watching him, human and alien alike, all afraid, all waiting for him to tell them it would be okay. "Everyone to the underground levels," he announced, his voice carrying across the bay. "Move quickly, but don't run. We have rehearsed this." The evacuation began with surprising order. Humans helped elderly Vaxians down the stairs. Refugee children from 3 different species held hands as they descended. Marcus watched them go, thinking about what Zana had asked. Why? Why was humanity doing this? "Because it's right," he muttered to himself. "What?" Zana had stayed behind, helping him gather medical supplies. Marcus looked at her. "You asked why we're doing this. Because it's right. The galaxy may have ignored us, but that doesn't mean we ignore the galaxy. Billions of lives depend on this working." Zana's expression softened. "Your species is either incredibly noble or incredibly foolish. Can't it be both?" A thunderous crack split the air. Through the window, Marcus watched as a canyon opened in the Martian surface, kilometers wide and still widening. The planet itself was screaming under the strain. Deep in Earth's coordination nexus, Julian Cross felt Mars's distress like a knife in his mind. Every planet in the system was connected to him now, and he felt their pain. Earth's oceans surging against coastal barriers, Jupiter's atmosphere churning with storms that dwarfed anything in recorded history, Saturn's rings fragmenting under the gravitational stress. "Captain, the Devourer is attempting to escape," Sienna Work reported, her voice tight. "It's pushing against the gravitational walls." Julian gritted his teeth. "Increase compression. All planets, maximum cohesion." "Sir, Mars is already at critical stress. If we increase—" "I know what it means," Julian cut her off. "Do it." 8 planets tightened their grip. The gravitational cage contracted, and inside it, the Devourer, for the first time in its ancient existence, found itself unable to move. On Mars, the final tremor hit. The medical facility's roof cracked. Marcus threw himself over a Vaxian child as debris rained down. He felt Zana's claws grip his shoulder, pulling him toward the shelter entrance. Together, they tumbled down the stairs as the surface level collapsed behind them. In the deep shelter, surrounded by thousands of refugees, Marcus pulled himself to his feet. His ribs ached, probably cracked. Blood ran from a cut above his eye, but around him, families huddled together. Human children comforting alien parents, alien healers tending to human wounded. "It's holding," someone whispered, checking their datapad. "The cage is holding." A cheer erupted through the shelter, echoing off the ancient Martian stone. Marcus felt tears on his face and didn't bother wiping them away. On the Council homeworld, Thren Valdis watched the display with Morven Kask and Piper Souls. The Devourer pulsed and writhed inside its prison of planets, unable to break free, unable to consume. Slowly, inexorably, the gravitational forces began compressing it, squeezing it like a cosmic vice. "They're doing it," Morven breathed. "They're actually containing it." "At what cost?" Thren asked quietly, watching the data streams showing the devastation across Earth's solar system. Piper's voice was soft but proud. "The cost of being human. We protect, even when it hurts us. We sacrifice, even for those who wouldn't do the same. That's what you never understood, Counselor."
Thren's antennae drooped in what might have been shame. "We were wrong about your species. Yes, but maybe now you'll listen." In the coordination nexus, Julian Cross felt his connection to the planets beginning to fade. The human body could only endure this level of consciousness expansion for so long. But it was done. The devourer was trapped, contained in a gravitational prison that would hold it for another 50,000 years. "Captain, Earth Command is authorizing system-wide stand-down. We can begin the restoration sequence," Sienna reported. Julian nodded weakly. It would take decades to return the planets to their proper orbits, to heal the wounds this battle had inflicted on their solar system. But they would heal. Humanity would rebuild. They always did. On Mars, Marcus Holt emerged from the shelter to see a sky painted in impossible colors, the result of gravitational lensing from the compressed devourer, visible even from millions of miles away. Zonapek stood beside him, her scaled hand finding his. "Thank you," she said simply, "for everyone." Marcus smiled despite his exhaustion. "That's what we do. We show up, even when nobody asks us to." Across the galaxy, the council chambers remained silent. Every species watched as Earth's solar system slowly began its long recovery. They had witnessed something unprecedented, not conquest or domination, but sacrifice on a scale that defied comprehension. Thren Valdis stood before the assembled council and spoke words that would echo through history. "Today, we learned that true power is not measured in fleets or territories. It is measured in what a civilization is willing to sacrifice for strangers." He looked directly at Piper. "The Council formally requests Earth's presence as a founding member of the new Galactic Assembly, if you'd still have us." Piper smiled, thinking of Marcus on Mars, of Julian in the Nexus, of billions of humans who'd held their world together while it saved the galaxy. "We'll have you. But this time, we do things differently. This time, we build something worth protecting." In the shadow cast by Earth and her sister worlds, a new era began. Not through domination, but through unity. Not through fear, but through hope. The Titan of Earth had cast its shadow, and in that darkness, the galaxy found its light.